You can have mine. I believe that mine is working. Nice to see you again, Minister. How are you today?
I'm very well. Good morning.
Good morning. We're very excited to have you as our headline guest. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Let me start by asking you a very big question. How do we go about striking the right balance when it comes to emerging technologies, AI, and regulation?
Thank you, Rebecca, and it's an absolute pleasure being here. I think that this is a critical summit that addresses a critical issue that not just affects the UAE, but affects every country in the world. And governments today are trying to combat this issue of effective governance. Just before we start, I must say that I would love to spend the whole day with all of you here today, but we need to cut our session a bit short because I have another engagement. When it comes to striking the balance, I think there are some factors that we need to consider where governments typically operate, I think, when it comes to these technologies. And let me give you a few examples from history first, and then maybe from recent times. Governments, in every single instance, when it comes to new technologies, tend to look at the world with a very protective view. So how do I ensure that I protect people, that I take the right decisions proactively to protect these people? Now, with that, the typical answer is overregulation. So every single time we see that happen, we see that there is a big chance of overregulation. And I'll give you maybe two examples from history and one example from recent history. The first is when photography was invented. So in the 19th century, so in 1824, if I'm not mistaken, or 1826, photography was invented. And in France, the decision by the government in 1829 was to ban photography in public places because a lot of people were worried about their privacy. So it was about, okay, what do I do when someone takes a photograph and I'm in that photograph? People know where I am, people know what I'm going to do, and so on and so forth. So the first instance of regulating was actually overregulation. The same was also true with the locomotive. So when cars were first invented, the UK had a very forward-looking regulation at the time called the Locomotives on the Roads Act of the 19th century. And that regulation was that every single car on the road could only drive a maximum speed of 4 miles an hour and had to have 3 drivers and had to also have a person walking in front of the car waving a red flag to ensure that accidents don't happen. Now, what that did was it actually hindered the adoption of locomotives. So people were not buying cars because they make sense. I can walk faster than the car. I did not need to hire 3 drivers and the person who walks in front of the car with a red flag. In recent history, if we look at emerging technologies like large language models, we see that, for example, ChatGPT was banned in Italy, it was banned in certain countries, because people believed that these technologies were going to be technologies that impact people negatively. So in the UAE, our view is always, we understand that these technologies are going to have negative ramifications. We believe that the answer is agility in the governance process. So we allow people to use it, but at the same time, whenever we do feel like it's moving the wrong directions, we can move and change legislations very quickly. And informing both the decision makers and the public is integral to effective decision making.
I understand that you're short on time, Your Excellency, but if I can ask you one closing question, what would your message be for everybody gathered in the room here today when it comes to the potential, not least for the UAE, when it comes to AI, emerging technologies, and the soft governance power that it gives us?
So I'll try to make this a long answer to make up for the lack of questions. I'm actually going to maybe answer it in 2 ways. The first is, with every single technology, the biggest benefactor are the people who are both early adopters and users of these technologies before it becomes mainstream. We were having a conversation right before coming on stage about cryptocurrency. I think the benefit that the UAE saw with blockchain technologies and crypto and the industries there was we moved before it became mainstream. We moved to welcome the ecosystem, so people like CZ, who's in the room, and others. We ensured that our legislations and, let's say, our ecosystem is one that is friendly to the industry, especially when it was very, very hard to welcome them here. Right? At that point of time, people were seeing this as a criminal enterprise, and that cryptocurrency was something that's more of a fad or a bubble. We believe that this technology, the underlying technology, was a technology that was here to stay and that we needed to embrace the ecosystem first, and maybe also help them build the utilities that they wanted to build. With that, it's about moving early rather than reacting very late. The second thing that I'd like to say is, when it comes to disruption, there are one of two ways that you're going to be part of that disruption. You're either going to be the one that's creating the disruption, or you're going to be the one that is being disrupted by that technology. There is no two ways about it. You can't be somewhere in the middle. And our view on these technologies is we want to be leading the disruption. Because if you're leading the charge, then yes, you might make mistakes, but if you're able to rectify them and quickly pivot and fix that mistake, you're going to make up for whatever issue you have. But many countries are going to emulate you, and you're going to set the standard. The standard is not going to be set abroad and then emulated and adopted in your country. So I would urge every single person to first utilize these technologies and use them. You need to actually, try them, understand the limitations of them. Second, I think governments need to change the legislative process. We were living in an era where technology was moving at a very slow pace, and it was gradual. Today, the rate of progress is very, very quick. And third is we're actually facing something that we've never faced in the past. Because of the common digital fabric that we're all on, which is the internet, technologies today can cut across borders very quickly. So you can't say that I'm isolated on my island and this is not going to affect me. It's going to affect all of us. The faster you move, the more informed you are, the more likely you are going to put the necessary restrictions to safeguard your people, but at the same time, you're going to benefit from the industry that's being created.